मेरा ये मानना है कि AI एंड आई गो बेटर टुगेदर। सबको इस पे ध्यान देना चाहिए। सबको लगता है कि अडॉप्शन इज इक्वल टू मैच्योरिटी, विच इज़ अ मिस्टेक।
या
अ लॉट ऑफ पीपल वंडर वी हैव ऑल ऑफ दिस, तो फिर काम क्यों नहीं हो रहा?
जो हमारा ओनर है ना, वो कहता है कि फ्री जितने भी टूल्स हैं ना उनको यूज़ करो, ठीक है। कहीं ना कहीं पेड पेड जहाँ की बात आ जाए ना, वहाँ नहीं होता। एंड अल्टीमेटली फिर वो एक्सपेक्ट भी करते हैं कि उतना रिजल्ट भी आए समवेयर और दी अदर। तो व्हाट डू यू फील दैट वन शुड यूज़ पेड टूल्स और स्टार्ट ब्रशिंग देमसेल्व्स विद द स्किल्स, कि वो पहले फ्री वर्जन यूज़ करे और उसके बाद वो पेड में अपने स्किल्स को और अच्छे तरीके से डेवलप कर सकता है। प्रैक्टिसिंग योगा फ्रॉम पास्ट 20 years एंड you are a yoga master as well. Do you think that fitness play a very crucial role in running a company or in every aspect of your life?
One thing which I feel is different with us versus founders, let's say in the US and UK, is risk-taking ability. Once you do an audit, the second is then educating yourself कि इस टूल की ये कैपेबिलिटी है versus इस टूल की ये कैपेबिलिटी है। सिर्फ कैपेबिलिटी नहीं, इनकेपेबिलिटी भी है।
Hi, and welcome to another episode of The Founder's Voice, where we believe that every founder has a story to tell. And today, as we are entering 2026, the hottest topic is still the AI. And today we have a very special guest. He has worked over 12 years in Google and as a digital marketer and elevated brands not only in India but also in US and UK. He is recognized as top 40 under 40 marketers in India by Business World and one of the top 10 AI coaches recognized by Silicon India magazine. Abhinav, welcome to the Founder's Voice.
Thank you so much for having me, Abhishek.
So, Abhinav, can you just take us through your past, present, and how things have been in the Google, and now as you are working as a founder for digital for non-profits, as well as for Digicated.ai. So, can you just let us through all the journey, that what is going on and everything?
Right. No, first of all, thank you so much for having me, and my best wishes to the Founder's Voice.
Thank you.
And the way you explained to me your desire to build a property where you want to talk to multiple founders and take their stories to more people, I think that's an important problem statement to solve. So I wish you the very best, and may you get to 100 episodes pretty soon.
Thank you.
So my name is Abhinav, and I worked at Google for 12 years, worked in multiple capacities across various geographies, as you had mentioned, with clients across the US, UK, and also in India. After those 12 years, working across different teams, quit in 2020 and built two brands. One is called Digital for Nonprofits, the other is called Digicated.ai. But the journey, in fact, I think started way before this. I was always a curious kid who was more interested in reading books than going to class. I was also someone who was very passionate about writing. That's what I really wanted to do when I joined Hindu College while I was studying electronics. So that thread of curiosity and wanting to do more has always been, I'd say, a core aspect of my life. Throughout Google, one thing I saw was that technology was able to create tremendous value. And while we only see the digital marketing side of Google, there are many other aspects which a lot of people are unaware of. And that was one thing which remained with me. But the other thing I also figured was that it's very unevenly distributed. If you look at the spread, even in digital marketing, it's largely the top spenders or the biggest brands. And we worked with many. I remember working with retailers like Granger in the US. They're a massive e-commerce company. Or in the UK, we used to do a lot of work with Macy's, or in India with Flipkarts and Amazons. Most of these brands, because of their sheer size and the resources they have, are able to take value out of technology. And that thread of how can we take the same tools and resources to those who don't have this access or who don't necessarily have the skills was a constant thread while I was at Google. So since you asked how did the brands come into being, while I was at Google, I got a lot of opportunities to work with nonprofits and to teach. And as Google for Non-Profits, a product which was always freely available, started developing. I started volunteering with a lot of nonprofits, as well as teaching at MBA institutions.
Okay.
And in my spare time, although Google didn't give me enough spare time, but somehow there was a desire, so we managed. And those two threads have just carried through, and they're manifesting as brands now. One is called Digital for Nonprofits, where the idea is to bridge the social divide digitally, ensure that they're able to use tech grants and GenAI and digital marketing well. The other is called Digicated.ai, where we've now taken a very structured approach to accelerating GenAI maturity for brands. So those are the two, I'd say, aspects which are now what you see as brands. So it's been about, I think, well, I quit Google in 2020, and this was right in the middle of COVID. Or maybe COVID was just about to start. So it's been quite a journey, building these, seeing a pandemic, and now working both with nonprofits and startups and teaching. But I wouldn't do it any other way.
Okay, so why you choose? The digital for non-profits as well, and the Digicated AI. I think that Digicated AI is more of a profit moving company, and whereas non-profit, as we understand. So why two things parallelly?
Yeah, fair question. Something I get asked very often. The most common question people ask me is, why quit Google? The other one is, why
Yeah,
you're
that also.
why you're doing why you're doing two things. And contrary to advice which I've heard, somehow I've always wanted to follow my heart, follow my gut. And that is what led me to quit Google as well. I was doing well, worked across various geographies and teams. I didn't really have much to complain about, but there was a very important question which kept coming up again and again. I personally think there are two questions which anyone should continuously ask themselves. The first one is, what am I here for? And the second one is perhaps a more personal one, which is, who am I? But that is I think a lifelong quest. But what am I here for was a very strong refrain, especially towards my latter half of the Google career. And I realized that on one hand, I had a lot of this know-how, understanding, experience with large brands. On the other hand, I saw non-profits as well as startups who did not have access or know-how of these technologies. And how could I take the same kind of leverage from what I had learned to these institutions who did not have this? Okay. So Digital for Nonprofits was purely born out of personal story. And that was, I'd spent a lot of time at the Sivananda Yoga Ashram, which happens to be a non-profit. And they gave me the gift of yoga. This was Jan 2012, where I ended up spending a month training to be a yoga teacher. And I wanted to do something in return. And over the last, I'd say now, almost 12 to 13 years, we've been able to embed digitization into a 60-year-old yoga ashram.
Oh, that's great.
So if a 60-year-old yoga ashram can digitize themselves, driven over 1 million visits, 30 to 35% of their overall traffic now comes from ad grants. And they're a digitally mature brand now. During COVID, they came online in 6 weeks. That's all it took. And now they're more resilient, they're more digitally oriented. That is where the seed of Digital for Nonprofits was, I think, sown. And now, courtesy that, we've been able to take it to many more nonprofits in the country. Seva Bharat, WWF India, Can Kids, All India Disaster Management Institute, and many more. That to me is a passion project where we are able to take leverage and give it to those who need the most. Digicated.ai is born from a supply and demand gap. There are a lot of brands who fail to recognize, understand, and I'd say adopt AI. And we've seen this across the last 3 years of doing a lot of work with different brands, that there needs to be a structured approach in which MSMEs and startups can approach generative AI. And these two are very different customer profiles as well. So from a non-profits perspective, you need a very different approach and a mindset
Yes.
Whereas from a startups and MSME approach, it's a very different audience set. It's a very different skill set. While I'd say the spine or the core is the same, the idea is to take leverage to these kind of brands, but both the approaches, the skill sets, and the tools are very different. But to me, the common point, of course, is to take leverage to those who perhaps would not get it otherwise.
Okay, that's great. So, Abhinav, technology has evolved, right? From, we'll see from past 10 years, it has enormously evolved. So, you have been into digital marketing now as an AI coach. So, what do you think is the major difference right now, as a digital marketer as well, as the, AI integrated, as you are a coach right now? So, what do you think in the span of 10 years, how digital marketing has changed and how AI also, helping the marketers right now? Or, perhaps what we are seeing right now is that AI is integrated and people are, are having the fear that they'll lose their job. So, what do you think as a digital marketer and now as an AI founder? So, how things have evolved? How?
Yeah. So, from a from a technology perspective, I personally think technology is neither good or bad. You can go back to the evolution of technology and see how, in the span of humankind, starting all the way back from the discovery of fire to the printing press to the internet to digital marketing and now to AI, these tools have been evolving and they've had different consequences depending on how they were used, both good or bad. Digital marketing is something which I've been very close to, and I was quite lucky because I got an insider's view. Digital marketing was still in its infancy when I joined Google in 2008. To now, 2025, where over 60% of advertising spends across the globe is on digital.
Yes.
And from an insider's perspective, I saw the entire revolution when it started from the web, moved to mobile, then moved to apps and e-commerce, and now, of course, to short form video. What I noticed was the tools became more sophisticated, yes, but the fundamentals did not change. The fundamentals of marketing will still remain the same because who you are marketing to and who is marketing are still two different interfaces, and there are there are humans involved at both ends. You said how has digital marketing evolved, and you also asked about AI and how should a digital marketer contend about AI. So I'll try and cover all three. Having seen things change so rapidly, I still remember the time when working with large retailers, if you had to create, and you may relate to this, if you had to create various sets of SEM copies,
Yes.
there was a lot of Excel work which was required. Then came in automated ads where you could just use combinations. Now with AI, you don't even need to do that because all of these are written for you. So yes, the overlying layer has changed, but the fundamentals still don't change. Why? Because you still need to understand the brand to ensure that the message which you're driving comes across well. What AI has done though is that it has added a layer of speed and complexity to everything. And I'll just take digital marketing example because this is something I've been teaching for over a decade. Digital marketing has four fundamental aspects. You can open any platform, you can go and speak to any tool provider, and those four are, namely, the first is targeting. Who do you want to show your message to? The second is, what do you want to say? This is creative. The third is, how much are you willing to pay? What is the amount? We'll call it CPC, CPM, or CPV in our terms, but technically it's what you're willing to pay at an auction or a reserve level. And the fourth is measurement. How do you measure this entire thing when it's put together? Now, if you break any platform into these four, whether it's Google or Meta or LinkedIn, and I can name so many others, Amazon, now there's Reddit and Quora and Snapchat and Pinterest, you'll see all these platforms are now offering themselves as advertising services. And I'm talking about advertising right now, not just organic. All of these things are now getting more automated and sophisticated because of AI. And as digital marketing ourselves, we understand that.
Yes.
That brings me to the question which you asked: how should a digital marketer contend with what's happening? One, we spoke about digital marketing and its evolution. Two, we spoke about how AI is impacting all of this. And I did not even get into the organic side of things. Content creation, as we know it, is already changing. Somebody may call it AI slop. Why? Because the creator, in this case, did not skillfully deploy AI. I know so many creators who today are using AI for speeding up their workflows to a shocking degree of efficiency.
Yeah.
Their newsletters are being written in 1/10 of the time. I also know authors who we work with, without taking names, who've written multiple books previously, but now their next book is coming out in a fraction of the time. So all of this depends on how skillfully you're being able to wield AI, whether as a digital marketer or as a creator or as an author. How do you contend with this? There is many sorts of advice out there. This is just my point of view as someone who's experienced this, and I've been at that operating level as a practitioner, where I've seen all of this happen. Ensure that you're keeping in touch with fundamentals, because fundamentals on digital marketing will not necessarily change, but you at least need to know the basics. The second is ensuring that you stay close to the frontier models on AI. Why I say that is because a lot of people think that, oh, they've understood one tool and that's enough. Not necessarily. I remember
Frontier model in.
when I say frontier models, I mean the likes of OpenAI, the likes of Claude, the likes of Gemini, and these are operational models which all of us have now experienced. You also have Perplexity. Then you have more specialized models which are doing work, let's say, on images. You have the likes of Midjourney, Ideogram, among others. Then you have similar ones on audio, similar ones on video, among others. So ensure that you're at least keeping abreast with what's happening there. So at one end, you have a deep understanding of your own field, which is digital marketing, which also evolves. So you need to stay on top of that. On the other end, you have a working knowledge of what's happening with models. I personally think the skill set of tomorrow will be combining your existing expertise with how AI models are developing. And both of them are changing quickly. Digital marketing is not changing as quickly as AI for sure, but it is changing. We know that for a fact.
Yep.
So if you're able to put the two together, you can solve for use cases which are very valuable for businesses. And I can give you so many examples. Let's take one simple example. One of the primary use cases for digital marketing always was content creation, whether it's in terms of writing copy, organic copy, or it was in terms of advertising copy, or it was in terms of images or short form video. This used to take a lot of time. Today, you can feed all of that context to any of these models, and depending on how skillful you are, you can create. I mean, I can say that scale is not a problem anymore. You can create months of content just in one go. The difference here lies between how exactly are you able to use your brand's context, and how well do you understand the platform's requirements. So if you put the two together, you're definitely ahead of, I would argue, 95% of digital marketers.
So, Abhinav, one thing I want to ask you that, founders in abroad and founders in India, you worked with both of them, So what is the, major difference you felt while working in, with people, businessmen like in US or UK, and when you work with the, founders of companies in India? Do you feel that they are lacking the technology that they have, or there's something else, or lot of things like in monetary terms, or the kind of knowledge or the kind of risk the founders from US and UK take? I usually feel that somewhere or the other Indians just like to push back a little. So can you just let us know that what you feel about it, and how they actually see as a marketing like in US and UK, they see all together differently. But India, somewhere or the other, we feel that you know they are still understanding the marketing fundamentals, but when it comes to taking the risk part, they are still you know pushed back and not applying those things.
Hmm. No, interesting question, and I think there's a lot of nuance which comes in because it's hard to generalize. I've now, and I can probably take some examples. Maybe we can talk about without naming the brands. I'll talk about an American founder, a European founder, and Indian founders we worked with, and a few things I'd like to highlight. Again, these are not hard truths, but just observations. And I'm a founder myself, so
Yeah.
I can definitely share my perspective. From a founder's lens, one thing which I feel is different with us versus founders, let's say in the US or UK, is risk taking ability, the appetite for uncertainty. A lot of that comes from cultural context. When we were growing up, risk taking appetite was not something which was served to us on a platter. Uh, and a traditional career path was always either look at becoming a doctor, an engineer, do an MBA, and while it's changing now, but at least when I was growing up, this was the safest path to success, and there was a very well defined, almost template. And there's a reason for this because we were always a service oriented economy.
Yes.
That hasn't changed even now. Yes, there are many other companies who are coming up who are not just service oriented, who are also product oriented, but we largely remain a service oriented economy. So one part is the risk taking ability as well as the appetite for uncertainty. The second is, and something which I have personally experienced, is the natural ability of founders or companies in the US and UK to be marketing and storytelling. Often enough, it seems like we have great products and services, but we don't market ourselves as well as they do. And I'll take examples of different brands now that we work with them. A specific brand which works in the environment space. This is a startup based in the US, has fantastic storytelling. What they're doing is, by the way, based off a well-known concept of energy offsets.
Okay.
By understanding how well you're able to capture your carbon footprint and figuring how well can you minimize that. And this is an important aspect given the entire conversation around climate change as well as decarbonization. It was so interesting to see how they packaged the story so well. And this is just one example. I'll take another example, European company. They do something very interesting. This is Vedic recitation. And I'm saying this personally because I was so impressed by the founder and what they were doing. Also because it's something I'm passionate about taking India to the world, that they've built a phenomenal product-led service business sitting in Europe, taking the best of India to the world. And it is phenomenal to see how they were able to create that story, find the right kind of marketing channels, and grow that brand worldwide. Coming to India, I think these are two things, and since we work with a lot of Indian founders as well, again, as I say, I can't generalize, but these are two aspects which I find we could definitely improve on. Pivoting faster, taking more risks, and being bold when it comes to telling our stories and marketing ourselves better. These are just personal examples, but I also, if you look at the entire AI space, why it has attracted so much money is because it's marketed itself so well. If you see the amount of money which is flowing into these companies, which are still not making, they're still not really making
Yeah.
sense from a business perspective. But the amount of capital and attention they're attracting is tremendous. Why? Because both, one, risk taking, the second is great storytelling and marketing. I wish we could inculcate more of that into founders in India. And I speak as a founder myself. From even a storytelling as well as a risk-taking perspective, I wish I could spend more time on cultivating this. Although a lot of people tell me that you've taken risks enough, that you quit Google, you work with non-profits, and you also are doing AI with startups. In addition to, yes, you're telling your story well, because we also have a couple of newsletters we run. But I still feel that I could have done this far faster and far better had I inculcated a little bit of that DNA. It's something which we only learned over time. So that's my point of view. And again, as I said, it's hard to generalize, but these are just my observations.
सो इंडियन फाउंडर्स अगर हम बात करें तो मेजरली आज लैक कर रहे हैं बिकॉज दे आर स्टिल नॉट एबल टू इंटीग्रेट द AI सिस्टम और somewhere or the other the employee also don't know and he is getting knowledge from everything. कोई ऐसा dedicated कोई चीज़ नहीं आ रही. बहुत सारे कोर्सेज तो आ रहे हैं लेकिन एक्चुअली उन्हें पता नहीं चल रहा कि कौन सा राइट है कौन सा रॉन्ग है. और समवेयर और दी अदर फाउंडर्स जो हैं उनको नहीं पता चल रहा कि ये AI को हम इंटीग्रेट कैसे करें. अगर सिस्टम में इंटीग्रेट करने की कोशिश भी कर रहे हैं तो फुली उस तरीके से इंटीग्रेट नहीं कर पा रहे. ये एक सबसे बड़ा मेजर ड्रॉबैक है. और आपको क्या लगता है कि मतलब हाउ दिस कैन हेल्प एंड डू यू थिंक दैट tier 2 and tier 3 cities are having more advantage than tier 1 or they are also lagging behind or something is going with tier 2 and tier 3 cities as well जहाँ पे AI कई founders बहुत अच्छे से integrate कर पा रहे हैं.
Okay. नहीं, so इसके बारे में ये ज़रूरी सवाल है. Let's talk a little more about this. So now, since we've now been using and educating and advising on Gen AI for the past 3 years, और मुझे अभी भी अच्छे से याद है जब नवंबर 2022 के अंत में हमें एक्सेस मिला था. We were lucky we got early access. We started tinkering with ChatGPT and we've seen it grow from a feature perspective, from a capability perspective, as well as from an application perspective. मेरा ये मानना है कि AI and I go better together. सबको इस पे ध्यान देना चाहिए, चाहे आप फाउंडर हैं या आप लेट्स से एन एग्जीक्यूटिव एम्प्लॉई हैं या आप मिडिल मैनेजमेंट में हैं. एंड अ प्रोसेस विच वीव कम टू अंडरस्टैंड नाउ आफ्टर हैविंग डन दिस फॉर सो लॉन्ग इज़ व्हाट आई वुड एडवाइज टू एवरीबडी. अगर आप एक फ्रेमवर्क पर्सपेक्टिव से चलें तो मैं सबको ये एडवाइस करता हूँ. द फर्स्ट इज़ डूइंग एन असेसमेंट एंड एन ऑडिट. लेट्स से आप एक ब्रांड हैं तो आपकी जनरेटिव AI मैच्योरिटी क्या है आज, उसको जानने के लिए कई ऐसे सवाल हैं जो पूछने ज़रूरी हैं. स्टार्टिंग फ्रॉम सिंपल थिंग्स लाइक व्हाट काइंड ऑफ टूल्स आर यू यूजिंग, हाउ मेनी ऑफ दीज आर पेड वर्जन्स, देन हाउ वेल डू यू अंडरस्टैंड प्रॉम्प्ट इंजीनियरिंग, आप क्या उस टूल का रिस्पॉन्सिबल और सेफ इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं. इन एडिशन टू दिस अंडरस्टैंडिंग के आप इसकी एप्लीकेशन सिर्फ टेक्स्ट में ही लगा रहे हैं या आप उसको इमेजेस में, वीडियो में, ऑडियो में, कोडिंग में, रिसर्च में, बहुत सारी चीज़ों में लग सकता है. इस सब में आप यूज़ कर रहे हैं कि नहीं कर रहे हैं. सो व्हेन वी आस्क दोज क्वेश्चंस, और हमने एक ऐसे क्वेश्चनर बनाया हुआ है कॉल्ड जनरेटिव AI मैच्योरिटी फ्रेमवर्क, जहाँ पे हम बहुत स्पेसिफिक सवाल पूछते हैं, ऑलमोस्ट 20 to 30 क्वेश्चंस, वेरी डीप क्वेश्चंस रिलेटेड टू योर ब्रांड. तो उससे आपको पता चलता है कि आप आज जनरेटिव AI मैच्योरिटी पे कहाँ हैं. Let's say the scale is from 1 to 4, you answer these questions and on the basis of some conversations, assess your ability of using Gen AI today. वो starting point है. दूसरा, मुझे ऐसा लग रहा है कि बहुत सारे ब्रांड्स के साथ नॉन प्रॉफिट्स और स्टार्टअप्स और इवन इंडिविजुअल CXOs, हमने लीडर्स के साथ बैठ के भी ये Gen AI की कोचिंग और एजुकेशन करी है. सबको लगता है कि adoption is equal to maturity. Which is a mistake.
Yeah.
A lot of people wonder, we have all of this, तो फिर काम क्यों नहीं हो रहा? No, but that's almost like saying I have purchased all the cricket gear. मैंने खरीद तो लिया सब कुछ, मैंने नेट सेशन बुक कर दिया, अब मैं जाके वहाँ पे रन्स बना लूँगा या बना लूँगी. But it's not the same. You getting all the ingredients does not mean that you have the skill
Yeah.
to be able to deploy those ingredients. So the second is making you aware of the capabilities, educating everybody to the fact that GenAI is now becoming more and more capable across different sorts of aspects. ये दूसरा काम है और ये ज़रूरी है. ये टिपिकली हमने देखा है, लीडर को लगता है कि हमने AI ले लिया और फिर वो सोचते हैं कि सब लोगों को अडॉप्ट कर लेना चाहिए और एफिशिएंसी तो आ नहीं रही है. और वो एक बहुत बड़ा एक I'd say गैप है. Once you do an audit, the second is then educating yourself कि इस टूल की ये कैपेबिलिटी है वर्सेस इस टूल की ये कैपेबिलिटी है. सिर्फ कैपेबिलिटी नहीं, इनकेपेबिलिटी भी है. ये नहीं कर सकता. A lot of times you'll see on social media everybody seems to say we've cracked this, comment this, tell me this, and an agent will do that. ऐसा नहीं होता है. Real life में when you come down to nuances you'll realize so many things which break. We haven't seen, apart from maybe very specific use cases which are fully automated, कहीं पे ऐसा नहीं है कि पूरा का पूरा काम ही ऐसे हो जा पा रहा है. And then I think the third thing is finding specific use cases जहाँ पे आप उसको reliably, repeatedly और consistently deploy कर सकते हैं. Keep in mind, every time you ask any of these tools the same question, you'll get a different response.
Okay.
Because large language models and GenAI tools are built like that. To find that kind of consistency, to find the kind of reliability a brand needs, also requires some skilling and priming. तो इतना स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड नहीं है. सो ये तीन भाग हैं जो मुझे लगता है हर ब्रांड को सोचना चाहिए. पहले एक ऑनेस्ट ऑडिट करें, दूसरा अपने आप को एजुकेट करें ऑन दिस ability of GenAI to be able to solve for things. तीसरा कि आप इसको अप्लाई कैसे करेंगे. क्या आप एक यूज़ केस को ऑटोमेट कर सकते हैं बाय क्रिएटिंग अ स्पेसिफिक असिस्टेंट. पॉसिबिलिटी है. आपने बहुत सारे न्यूज़लेटर बनाए हैं, उनका ब्रांड वॉइस टोन सेम है, तो अब नेक्स्ट न्यूज़लेटर जो है वो शायद ऑटोमेट हो सके. वो एक एस्पेक्ट है. मोर कॉम्प्लेक्स एस्पेक्ट्स हमने बहुत सारे नॉन प्रॉफिट साथ देखा है. पूरा एनुअल रिपोर्ट भी हम लगभग ऑटोमेट किए हैं, जिसमें 3-6 महीने लगते थे, अब वो 15 दिन में हो जाता है. सो यू हैव टू फाइंड अ यूज़ केस विच कैन बी रिलायबली ट्रांसलेटेड बाय GenAI. अभी हम एक कोई आयुष का प्रोग्राम था, नस्या उनका एक भाग है, उनके साथ कर रहे थे. लॉट ऑफ आयुर्वेदिक डॉक्टर्स वर इन द ऑडियंस, ऑलमोस्ट 100-150 डॉक्टर्स. What they did not know is that you can conduct very specific deep research on topics which you would not otherwise find answers for online. Now large language models can do that research for you. And that's something which was a super power for them. So depend करता है use case क्या है. So ये तीन भाग हैं. Assess करिए, अपने आपको educate करिए, और उसके बाद use case by use case इस understanding को translate करिए into real value. And I think वो जो last वाला spot है, वहाँ पे most people tend to miss the point.
ओके. सो आपको लगता है कि फ्री टूल्स और पेड टूल्स में बहुत ज़्यादा डिफरेंस आ जाता है? द मेमोरी हैज़ अ डिफरेंस, मतलब कहीं ना कहीं अगर कोई कंपनी है, कभी कभी मैंने बहुत सारे मेरे फ्रेंड्स भी थे जो बोलते हैं कि यार जो हमारा ओनर है ना, वो कहता है कि फ्री जितने भी टूल्स हैं ना उनको यूज़ करो.
Yeah.
ठीक है, कहीं ना कहीं पेड पेड जहाँ की बात आ जाए ना वहाँ नहीं होता. एंड अल्टीमेटली फिर वो एक्सपेक्ट भी करते हैं कि उतना रिजल्ट भी आए somewhere or the other. So what do you feel that one should use paid tools, or start brushing themselves with the skills कि वो पहले फ्री वर्जन यूज़ करे और उसके बाद वो पेड में अपने स्किल्स को और अच्छे तरीके से डेवलप कर सकता है?
I think personally I've always advised people to use the full version of the tool. Although what's happening in India, it's not happening in other parts of the world. जहाँ पे बहुत सारे ये जो tools हैं उन्होंने अपने प्लान्स ईदर फ्री में ऑफ़र किए हैं या फिर बहुत ही कम प्राइस पे भी ऑफ़र किए हैं. सो अफोर्डेबिलिटी का क्वेश्चन नहीं रहा है अब. सो आई पर्सनली थिंक कि सबको ही उसका पेड प्लान यूज़ करना चाहिए, चाहे आप उसको इंडिविजुअली पे कर रहे हैं या आप कंपनी पे बिल कर रहे हैं. बिकॉज द डिफरेंस बिटवीन द फ्री एंड द पेड इज़ ह्यूमंगस. इट्स एक्सपोनेंशियल. बहुत सारी चीज़ें हैं जो आप फ्री में नहीं कर सकते हैं. कॉन्टेक्स्ट विंडो साइज़ का फ़र्क पड़ जाता है. उसके बाद नंबर ऑफ़ क्वेरीज़ कितना आप यूज़ कर सकते हैं उस पर फ़र्क पड़ जाता है. मल्टी मोडालिटी यूज़ कर सकते हैं नहीं कर सकते, उस पर फ़र्क पड़ जाता है. बहुत सारे एस्पेक्ट्स हैं. एंड देयर इज़ अ रीज़न वाई दे क्रिएटेड अ गैप सो दैट यू पे देम because if you are taking the subscription, that's how they make money. So yes, short answer, उसमें अंतर है. बट इंडिया में अब बहुत सारे ऐसे टूल्स हैं जो कि नेग्लिजिबल कॉस्ट पे आते हैं, या फिर बहुत सारे ऐसे हैं जो नियरली फ्री हैं. I know, without taking names, I can tell you all these premier tools can be taken at nearly no cost. At least their initial paid plans and tier plans, जो कि बहुत लोगों के लिए स्टार्ट करने के लिए काफ़ी है. सो येस, दोनों में बहुत अंतर है. और येस, खर्चा बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं है. आप प्रीमियर टूल्स का $20 फी भी पकड़िए, आप 5 टूल ले रहे हैं तो इट्स $100 इन्वेस्टमेंट फॉर अ मंथ. थिंक पर्सनली दैट्स समथिंग विच अ कंपनी ओनर should start thinking of very seriously, because if you're taking that step and you're demonstrating to your team कि देखिए इतनी value आ सकती है इससे, then you're not looking at AI as a cost. You're then looking at it as a lever, that okay, I should be able to gain so much efficiency, I should be able to get so much ROI from it.
So apart from the AI, I got to know that you are practicing yoga from past 20 years, and you are a yoga master as well. So how yoga entered in your life, and do you think that fitness play a very crucial role in running a company, or in every aspect of your life?
या सो जो आपने पहली दो चीज़ें कही, पहले तो आई डोंट थिंक मैं योगा मास्टर हूँ. आई ऑलवेज कॉल माई सेल्फ अ योगा स्टूडेंट. लेट मी ऐड अ योगा एंथुजियस्ट एंड अ लाइफ लॉन्ग स्टूडेंट. दूसरा, I think yoga seriously started for me from 2012 when I spent 30 days at a yoga ashram training to be a yoga teacher. And I think that was the most important decision I took in my adult life, because that was very transformational for me. Many things, I'd say the course of my life changed because of that 30-day period. And I credit Shivananda Yoga Ashram for that. वहीं से digital for non-profits की भी कहानी शुरू हुई थी, in addition to the other things we've now done. So over the last, I'd say, maybe 10, 12 to 15 years, I was lucky to get time to be able to explore yoga at different schools in the country. And I'm very lucky to have a set of mentors from different fields who I personally try and engage with, spend time with. And that to me has been a gift which keeps on giving. दूसरा भाग जो आपने पूछा कि फिटनेस या किसी के लिए भी ये प्रैक्टिस ज़रूरी है या नहीं है, आई थिंक मोर एंड मोर नाउ, not just from a founder's perspective, but from an individual's perspective. One thing which yoga taught us, or at least taught me, which Shivananda Yoga says, it says health is wealth, peace of mind is happiness, and yoga shows the way. These are two aspects in your life which you cannot purchase. You cannot purchase health. Ask someone who has a terminal disease. They cannot purchase health, no matter how much comfort you're surrounded by. The second is you cannot purchase peace of mind. These are two things which are non-negotiable.
So आपके दिन में burnout नहीं होता?
सबके ही दिन में burnout होता है, सबके ही ups and downs होते हैं, but a strong anchor and a practice prepares you to be able to deal with them better. So to me, जो आपने सवाल पूछा वो सबके लिए ही मुझे लगता है ज़रूरी है. अब वो कोई भी प्रैक्टिस करें, योगा इज़ जस्ट one specific aspect. Any sort of discipline, whether it's internal or external, which is helping you build health or build peace of mind, I think personally today is extremely important. Why? I'll also share that with you, because AI today is changing the pace of everything at a scale which was not expected.
Yeah.
So as countries, as societies, as families, as individuals, we were never built for this pace of change. और ये बहुत ज़रूरी चीज़ है जो लोग नहीं सोच रहे हैं इस बारे में. इतनी जल्दी जब एक्सटर्नली चीज़ें बदलती हैं तो आपके लिए इंटरनली एक स्ट्रॉन्ग ग्राउंडिंग एंकर होना बहुत ज़रूरी है. उसके लिए जो भी प्रैक्टिस हो विच हेल्प्स यू फाइंड बेटर हेल्थ एंड पीस ऑफ माइंड, आप उसको ज़रूर करिए. वो करेंगे तो वो एक्सटर्नली रिफ्लेक्ट करेगा. बिकॉज एज अ फाउंडर आई कैन टेल यू, योर कंपनी इज़ your output, your balance sheets, everything is a reflection of your state of being, especially in the initial stages. Maybe at large stages when you become well funded, you have so many other people, even then you see it is very driven by founder personalities.
Yeah.
So your inner state of being reflects very clearly externally in the founder's world for sure. So I personally think ये दो चीज़ें बहुत ज़रूरी हैं, हेल्थ और पीस ऑफ माइंड. कोई भी जरिया आप चूज़ करें लेकिन उस पर ज़रूर काम करें.
So, what do you think the future of AI will look like in 2030? And will the companies have more workforce, less workforce, or no workforce? Or the company will only run by
Okay.
one individual only?
It's a very pertinent question, and also I can tell you that nobody has that oracle which will give the answer to this question. Also, 2030 is far out when you say what will happen 5 years from now. At the pace of which AI is going, it's hard to say what will happen 5 months from now. There's a popular quote which says there are decades where nothing happens, and then there are weeks in which decades happen. We're currently in that phase where every week the pace of progress is so frightening that decades are already happening. So 2030, what will we see? It's hard to say. But I personally am of the belief that if you have to see where something is going, then look at its direction and look at the rate of change. फिजिक्स में यही पढ़ा गया था, और बात अगर आप साइंस के पर्सपेक्टिव से भी सोचें, एंड आई वाज ऑलवेज समवन, आई स्टिल एम very curious about the world. We write a newsletter called Between Calls where we gather the latest from the world of digital marketing, wellness, and science. And coming back to direction and rate of change. So if you look at those two things, I can tell you a few things which I feel will certainly happen. One is most of these tools will have larger and larger context windows and memories. So they're able to retain, reason, and answer better, bringing them to what we might call superintelligence, where it'll be hard for one human being to be able to contend with a tool. Why? Because it doesn't just have literary ability, it also has mathematical ability, it also has spatial ability, it also has coding ability. It's hard to find all of those in one person. So one, of course, is the explosion of intelligence. The other is it will go, as we have already seen, multimodal. Earlier it was just text, then came image, then came video. Now many of these frontier models are also integrating audio as well as coding. So you will have the breadth of its capability grow. I remember 2 years, maybe 2.5 years ago, we had to stitch together 3 or 4 things to be able to do something specific. You don't need to do that now. It also needs you to be a lot more humble. Why? Because you spent like 2 weeks cracking a use case 1 year ago, and today that use case can be done by 1 tool, which wasn't possible earlier. But it's a good learning opportunity. So those two things are already happening. The third, I feel, is it will not be restricted to the device anymore.
Okay.
Today it's only on the phone and the laptop. It's slowly now coming into glasses, I think maybe watches, maybe pins, and maybe general everyday devices. So these three things, which is changing of form factor, expansion of memory and intelligence, as well as it being able to understand different modalities, all three will happen together. The fourth, which is already happening in parallel, and we haven't necessarily paid too much attention to it, is it getting embedded into humanoids. So 2030, it may not just be in these form factors, it may just also be in the form of a humanoid who's not just doing cognitive tasks, who's also doing real tasks. You may just be interviewing a super intelligent humanoid who has a personality instead of an actual human being, or vice versa. I may be getting interviewed by somebody who's an expert podcast humanoid. So to me, that is the kind of thing which is a real possibility. Which also brings me to two or three other things, because you
So
asked.
this is the scary part for me as well.
Yes.
For every, you know, the person who is not understanding the AI right now will certainly fall behind, or you know, can lose their job. What kind of jobs will not be there in 2030? If I just wanted to just name few, one or two, three.
It's an important question. You said what will happen to the workforce, and these are real concerns. Let's just talk about two or three things which everybody should be aware of. One is understanding how to work with AI will become extremely important as a skill set. AI and I will always be greater than just I. You want to be on the left side of the equation. The second important thing is, and we spoke about it, is that you have to have a renewed focus on your health and your peace of mind. Why? Because as all of these things change so quickly, for you to be able to contend with that kind of change, you need a healthy body and a strong mind. Third thing, when you speak about workforce, this is just my belief that every workforce has a certain gradient. Let's divide that gradient into a skill set which is rated from scale 1 to 10, depending on what that skill set is. For instance, content writing. I still remember reading this research report which said on platforms like Fiverr and a lot of these platforms where you'd hire talented freelancers, the demand for content writers dropped by in excess of 50% after AI came in. Do you think there are no more content writers today? That's not true. There are, but those are the ones who understood how to embed AI into their processes. So if on a scale of 1 to 10, you're between level 1 to 3 to 4, at that place, AI can probably come and replace you. Now, this also will depend on which kind of skill set you're in. If you're a hairdresser, I don't think you or I would trust an AI machine
Exactly.
to cut our hair. So in this case, cognitive tasks, depending on what kind of work you're doing and where you are on the level, some of it may get automated, but your job is to figure out how to build deep expertise into what you're good at and then combine AI with it to create value. Because eventually, anyone will pay you if you're creating value for them. That's the side of the equation you want to be on.
So, Abhinav, this is a section of rapid fire round in our founder's voice. So, I'll ask you some of the questions. So, you have to just reply once. Okay.
Reply quickly.
Yeah, exactly. So, one AI tool that every founder should try.
It's a hard to answer question because there is no one particular tool I recommend. I'll just say from a what's going on currently in my scheme of things, I feel everybody should spend some time with Claude.
Claude.
Simply because in the popular sort of awareness and parlance, we see a lot more ChatGPT and Gemini. Claude has extraordinary long form writing, coding abilities, and everybody should see what's happening there.
One skill that every employee should master.
The ability to interact with AI to be able to get what you require. And this is a combination of understanding prompting and priming and the ability of the tools. If you're able to interact with AI in a manner that it gives you what you need, that would put you ahead of most of the folks out there.
A non-profit doing work that deserves more attention.
It's called My Angels Academy. They are a non-profit based in Vikaspuri, and they work with slum children. They're transforming lives through love and football. And I personally think they deserve a lot more attention than they get.
A book that really changed the world you see right now.
So I'm in between many books at any point in time, but one particular book I read recently, I found it in Bali at a surfing store. It's called West of Jesus. It was written by Stephen Kotler, not to be confused with Philip Kotler, who brought a very academic lens to marketing. Stephen had Lyme disease. He lost everything and came back from no man's land by researching and following a myth and a story and created a point of view on the science and religion of surfing. So it's an extremely well researched as well as a moving book. And I remember reading it non-stop, and I finished it before I even landed in Delhi. It was one of those books which I got really stuck into, and the fact that he was able to bring himself from where he was to where he eventually came to be was personally very inspiring. I do recommend people to read it. West of Jesus, Stephen Kotler.
Okay. What does leverage mean to you in one line?
I often go back to this quote, and that quote is give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum strong enough, and I will move the world. It was, I mean, it's an old quote. Archimedes said it many, I'd say, years ago. But to me, I think that is what drives all of our work because that's what we are built to do. I'm clear that my purpose is now to offer leverage to nonprofits, to brands, and to individuals. Digital marketing and generative AI and yoga are just the means. Personally, found a lot of value by employing these three in my life, and I think they can offer leverage to anybody who would be able to employ them right.
And one last question, that one fitness mantra you want to, give to all the individuals, even the employees, the founders, everyone, one fitness mantra that you should do every day and somehow eventually you'll realize that this has changed you. One thing only.
If you can develop a relationship with fire,
Okay.
it would have a tremendous impact on your organism. It could take different forms. I can just give a couple of examples. Surya Namaskar is a common practice. It's a very complete workout for your body. And I feel that everybody should be practicing Surya Namaskar on a daily basis. I have been doing it for over a decade. I did it today as well, or at least I tried to find the time to. I at least want to do it about 5 to 6 days a week. But that's just one form. You could stare at a flame, you could do a homa. Now, there are different ways in which you can connect with fire, but the reason why I say that is because, and I don't often speak about it, but the question came to me unexpectedly, so it feels like I should respond organically. The fact that we can see each other, the fact that we can hear each other, the fact that we can comprehend each other is all a function of fire.
Okay.
If you think about it and examine that, you'll realize that everything is a function of fire. So developing a relationship with fire in any format will benefit you immensely. And one quote I come back to again and again because it's related to fire is हिंदी में है कि जहाँ ना पहुँचे रवि वहाँ पहुँचे कवि, जहाँ ना पहुँचे कवि वहाँ पहुँचे अनुभवी. Once you experience the ability of fire, you will understand why I'm saying this.
So thank you, Abhinav. Thank you for being on the Founder's Voice. We hope we'll have another session and learn more about the AI tools, and we'll see maybe next year that how AI has actually evolved. So thank you for the episode.
I think one thing I'd like to definitely add before we close. There are two important things for everybody to keep in mind, which I personally think should be kept front and center. One is, and these are two separate quotes, but I'm saying these together. Every new technology feels indistinguishable from magic. With AI, we're coming closer and closer to that. Things feel like magic. Why? Because you can create things instantly. They were never possible before. Also, this will ensure that the future comes to us a lot faster. It will not be very evenly distributed. Some of these folks will understand how to use these tools and technologies better than others. So, yes, magic is happening all around us at this point in time, and it will perhaps create a future which is even more unevenly distributed. So, keeping these two things in perspective, just remind yourself of that, and hopefully you can build that AI and I relationship, which I always talk about. I always say AI and I go better together. That will be my advice and future proofing strategy to everybody who's listening to your podcast.
Thank you, Abhinav. Thank you for the amazing conversation right now. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.